do is you're gonna measure on that, so you have a piece of fabric that is 8 inches by 5.5 inches. And you are going to measure across on the 8-inch side. What is half of 8?
4.
4, very good, look at that. So we're gonna make a mark there, and now I have to make a mark down here so it's a straight line. And I'm gonna bring my ruler around and we're gonna draw a line here. Now this is on the good side of my fabric, because later on we're gonna do that. Now, the next thing it says is to do a 1/4 inch hem on both the short sides. So this is a seam gauge, and what we're gonna do is, what is a 1/4 doubled? So it is a half. So if I gave you 2 quarters, you would have a half of a dollar. You get it? Yes. Oh, I just taught you fractions. So now I'm gonna go over here, I'm gonna go to a 1/2 inch, okay? And now I'm going to bad side of my fabric, I'm gonna make a mark here. I'm gonna make a mark here. Now this is a 1/2 inch, but what did I say? Did I say a 1/2 inch hem? No, I said 1/4 inch. So what we're gonna have to do here is you are going to fold the edge of your fabric down, and then look, you got a 1/4 inch hem. So now I'm gonna show you to pin the wrong way on this. So you know how when we sew, we always pin perpendicular, which would be going this way? We're gonna pin parallel, just so that it is easier to keep the fabric down. Oh, dead pin. And we're gonna come down here and we're gonna do that same little pin illegally, because we're not sewing this. And now I prefer you not to iron over pins. Why? Because pins get hot and they could burn you, number 1. Number 2, pins also, if they have that decorative cool little head on them, they can melt. And number 3, certain fabrics, it can actually like burn, and it, like that indent is there for life. So, but I know some of you guys are nervous. Okay, first off, we're all using cotton. I'm gonna be honest with you, it's not gonna hurt your fabric if you iron over the pins, it won't. However, what I'm gonna recommend is just take them out before you get there. And now you're gonna use a little steam as you're doing this, okay? Because this is cotton. Now, if this was not cotton, I would have my trusty pressing cloth on top, okay? And now we have a 1/4 inch fold down. Now, nobody wants to see this in the inside of their pants, right? This raw edge, you don't want to see that, because that's not pretty looking, right? Because if we would look on the inside of our pants or our shirts, okay, we may have a zigzag here, but it's going to be a finish, so we need to fold it over one more time. Do you see that? Yes. So now we're going to fold it over one more time. Now, guys, we are going to sew, okay? So we're going to pin the right way, and if you look, the pin is going in and out of the hem. That is going to make sure that it stays secure. If you pin it in the hem and then on just the plain piece of fabric, it just won't hold it tight. So now that it's there, pressing cloth over. And if you didn't have a pressing cloth at home, you can use a piece of broadcloth. It won't do as good of a job, but it will at least protect the fabric. All right, and then you are going to sew right on that edge. You're going to do that to both of these sides. Okay, good. Now you need 8 by 5.5 inches. Okay, so if you have the selvage, which is the machine cut edge, that you're not going to want in your design, so that edge can get cut off, but it's a really good one to go off of. So if I'm going off of here, say I want 8 inches here, oh, cut 8 inches perfectly there. All right, so now we have to go 5.5 inches. So we're gonna go from this edge over 5.5. I'm gonna make a mark. Remember, I can't just go off of that because that could be crooked. So now I have to make another mark down here, 5.5. Now I line them up and I draw my line, okay? And now this gets cut. So now we have a 5.5, okay? 5.5 by 8. Remember, the one thing that I always tell you guys, measure twice, cut once, because you're not gonna be able to cut that again, all right? So Now we're going over to the good side of the fabric. Okay, and it says on the directions, measure, make a mark at halfway mark. Okay, so that is, what is half of 8? That is 4. So we're gonna make a mark here and here. Okay, so now we have our 5.5 by 8 inch piece of fabric. We made a mark here. I'm gonna draw the line. We're gonna use this later on, just not right now. Okay, so now the next step that it says is we need to fold down a hem, a 1/4 inch hem. So now what a hem is, if you look at the bottom of your pants, okay, this is a hem. You see this? Okay, so it's folded under. If I look at this, this is definitely not just a 1/4 inch. You see how that's a 1/2 inch hem? Okay, so what we need to do right here, we need to fold it under a 1/4 inch. Now, no one wants to see a raw edge on their hem, right? No one wants to see, that's ugly, right? So what we have to do is fold it over again, it says on the directions. So you're gonna fold it over twice. That is a nice clean hem. Now, typically, this is a very narrow hem, a 1/4 inch and a 1/4 inch, very narrow. On a pair of pants, typically on our pajama pants, because this is the whole reason we're learning this, it's a 1/4 inch, and then we go up either an inch to a 1/2 inch, depending on how big of a hem. Okay, but again, tissue case, we're just doing a 1/4 and a 1/4. So now we could go like this. This seam gauge is meant to use the marker down here. I would mark it at a 1/4 inch, and now I would come in here, put it right where the fold is, and then I would put a pin in it. Okay, that's really hard for some of us to do. So this is what I like to tell you to do. What is a 1/4 doubled? What if I give you 2 quarters? How much money do you have? 50 cents, which is how much of a dollar?
Half.
It's a 1/2. So 2 quarters equal a 1/2. So if I'm gonna double that, I go to a 1/2, make a mark. And you're gonna see why I'm doing this in a second. So I'm making a mark at a 1/2. I'm gonna draw myself a line. And now if I fold up to the line, I've got a 1/4. Does that make sense? So now what you're gonna do is, you know how I always say pin perpendicular to the line? If I say to pin perpendicular to the line, it would be like this. But we're not sewing, so I'm gonna tell you to sew pin illegally, which is going parallel to the line. Okay? And the reason I'm going to tell you to do this is because A, we're not sewing, and B, it holds your fabric down a lot better. You're gonna do this to both sides. And now, before you go over the pins, you use your pressing cloth, okay? Press it down, okay? Wait a second to let the pins cool. Take them out. And now, all you have to do is fold it right on that edge over. And now you're gonna pin the right way. So in and out, perpendicular, okay? Now for our friends at home, what they would do at this point, they would do a running stitch, hand stitch right across that with a needle and thread, which you could do. We're going to do on the machine a running stitch. And you just have to remember to get to the edge. So when you sew this, you're gonna go here, back stitch, sew all the way over and go to the edge and back stitch there, all right? So you wanna start at the edge, end at the edge. And you're gonna do this to both sides. What do you think I have to do now? Press it again, all right? You always wanna press it again. And now this one would be ready to go. Now, at this point, if you have both, you could press it pressing cloth protects your fabric, especially if we don't know what kind of fabric we have. You're gonna sew right on this edge, right down from end to end, all right? And then the next step we're gonna get to is folding it right in half here, pinning it, and I'll demo this in a minute. 1/4 inch, and a seam finish, and you're done. So you're gonna be finished today. All right, are there any questions? No? All right.